Classification of good means identification of chapter, heading, subheading, tariff item in a particular product to be classified. Section, chapter, heading, subheadings, tariff. Heading, chapter, heading, subheading, tariff items are on a schedule of rate of notification of goods under GST and chapter. Heading, subheading, tariff items of a schedule of Customs Tariff Act 1975. The Indian Customs Tariff is based on Hutchison. Hutchison harmonized system of nomenclature, and this is a multi-purpose international product nomenclature developed by the World Customs Organization for the purpose of classifying goods across the world of systematic manner. It comprises of 5,000 commodity groups, each identified in six-digit code. A code can be extended and arranged in a legal and logical structure. It supposed well-defined rules to achieve uniform classification. India's extended Hutchison code is 8 digits. Although lines of Hutchison Indian Customs Tariff has set of rules and interpretation of a schedule of greater general explanation. Note these rules and general principles gives clear definition of how the nomenclature of this schedule has been interpreted. A rule of interpretation includes section, chapter, notes, and the general explanation note of a schedule. Apply to the interpretation of the note rate notification of the GST and on GST also. Consequently, under the GST, goods are classified under the based on Hutchison according to the rules of interpretation customs tariff. The same has been discussed in the chapter 3 classification of import and export goods in the module 4 in the study material. Once a classification of product has been determined, the basis applicable rate has been determined as per the prescribed rate notification issued by GST. Classification of service. A new scheme classified as service has been defined under the GST. It is a modified version of United Nations Central Product Classification. Under the scheme, service of various determination has been classified and various description has been classified under various section headings and groups. Section 19 has been assigned for services, and this chapter has been following sections. Section 5, 6, 7, 8 construction services. Section 6 descriptive trading services, accommodation services, books and food and beverage services, transportation service, gas and electricity distribution services. Section 7 financial and related services related to real estate services, rental and leasing services. Section 8 business and production services. Section group of chapters determine the groups of class of people. Chapters, each section is divided into various chapters. Subject to each chapter contain goods and classes. Chapter note. This is mentioned beginning of each chapter. These notes on of this statute have been legal authority and definition of classifying goods. Heading each chapter and each subchapter divided into various headings, subheadings. Each heading further into various subheadings. Section 9 commodity of social and personal services or miscellaneous services. Each section is divided into various headings and further into groups and subgroups. Chapter section, chapter a couple of sections, section heading group into tariff item and service code. The rate of tax is determined according to service code in which service provided. GST rates described the following is given. Broadly, 7 rates of CGST has been notified in 7 schedules. A rate of notification 0.0125%, 0.75%, 1.5%, 2.5%, 6%, 9%, 14%. CGST as UTHS is equivalent rate is also legal. When the IGST broadly into 7 rates which has been notified, that is 0.25%, 0.5%, 1.5%. 3%, 5%, 12%, 18%, 28%. Specified as 115, 175 is not an GST. Certain specific goods has been exempted from tax. Students may refer CBSE website a complete schedule of GST rates and specific goods and knowledge. GST rate prescribed in various services. Broadly, 6 rate of GST has been notified service, that is 0.75%, 2.5%, 3.75%, 6%, 9%, and 14%. Equivalent rate of CGST, SGST, and equivalent. For IGST 6 rates, it is 1.5%, 5%, 7.5%, 12%, 18%, 28%. Certain specific service nil rate tax has been notified. Service of gambling, service by way of admission to entertainment events and access to amusement facility, including casino, race clubs, and place where casinos or race clubs clubs, sporting events such as IPLs and events like IPL service provider race clubs are totalizers are licensed to the bookkeeper, bookmaker, or such clubs getting gambling etc. attract the highest rate of 28%, CGST 14%, SGST 14%. The number of services are subject to the lower tax of 5% CGST, 5 to CGST 5.5%, SGST 2.5%, IGST 5%. And for instances, GTA services taxed in 5% are subject to the condition that the credit of input tax charge on the goods and service under and used in the supply said service has not been taken. Similarly, so for input credit of input tax charged on the goods and services in supplying said services not be taken. Similarly, the tax supply of restaurant service other than specified terms is 5% without input tax credit. Service not covered under the specific heading and tax under the 18% CGST, 9% SGST, 9% IGST, 18%. Following para, the applicability of GST in real estate sector has been briefly discussed. Notification 11 2017, 28 August 2017. Notification 8 2017 or 28 August July 2017. Student may refer the CBSE website to a complete schedule of GST rates and services for knowledge purposes. Specific permissions means permissions provided hotel accommodation, such as having declared tariff of any unit accommodation more above 7,000 per unit per day or equivalent. The effective day of GST in real estate is a new project by promoting as follows. 1% of ITC of construction affordable, 1% without ITC and construction of affordable housing. Area of 80 square meters in meters, metros, and 90 square meters in non-metros, value up to 45 lakhs. 5% of ITC applicable on construction, all houses other than affordable housing, commercial apartments, just shopping, offices, residential estate property, which is carpet area of commercial apartments, not more than 15% of total carpet area of apartment. Condition tax rate shall be leviable subject to following condition. ITC shall not be applicable. 80% of input and input services other than service by way of grant of development rights, long-term lease or for land against a upfront payment in form of premium, salami, development charges, etc. The FSI including additional FSI, electricity, high-speed diesel, motor, respiratory, natural gas used in supply of service shall be purchased from the registered person. However, the value of input and input service purchased from the unregistered person is less than 80%. Promoter has to pay GST in reverse charge mechanism under Section 9(4). Declared value supply of service notified under Section 9(4). Discuss above para highlighted brown in the solely for purpose of knowledge and students is not meant to examination purpose. The rate of 18% is in all such inward supplies. 80% on inward supplies from registered person. Further, where a cement is received from unregistered person, the promoter shall pay tax on supply such cement and reverse such basis under Section 9(4) at the applicable rate of 28%, CGST 14%, SGST 40%. However, GST on capital goods shall be paid by the promoter on reverse such basis. Section 9(4) applicable notification 7 2019 CT March 29 2019, notification 7 2019 dated 29th March 2019. A levy of GST on airport use and the authority managing the airport operator charges the airport levies and similarly PSF and UDF for parking so passengers at any airport. The view of definition of considering under section 2 class 31 PSF and UDF charged by the airport operator considering the providing services passengers. The service provided by the airport operator to the passenger service are considered in the forms of UDF and PSF are liable to GST. Generally, an airport license appoints an airport operator responsible for overseeing the airport day-to-day operation and facilitate management. However, in small airports, the roles of airport licensee and airport operator may be fulfilled by same entity. The PSF is a passenger service fees, which is the airport license may collect from the embarking passenger at such a rate specified by central government. The airport license shall utilize the said fees for infrastructure and facilitation of the passengers. UDF is user development fees, which is the airport license may levy and collect on the major airports and prescribed rate. Very happy. The PSF and UDF are labeled, that is a passenger service fees and user development fees is the airport operator but also collected by the airlines. These charges are collected by the airlines as the agent of the passenger and not considered for any service provided by the airlines. Thus, the amounts so recovered by the airlines will be excluded from the value of supplier made by the airline to the passenger. In another word, the airline shall not be liable to pay GST on PSF and UDF for the airport services provided by the airport license, provided the airline satisfy the condition prescribed from the pure agent under Rule 33 of CGST rules. The airport authority which is liable to pay GST and UDF and PSF. The airline should separately indicate the actual amount of PSF and UDF and GST payable on the PSF and UDF for the airport operator in the invoice issued by the airlines to the passengers. The airline shall not take ITC for GST payable. Cannot ITC of the GST payable or paid on PSF and UDF. The airline would also recover the same PSF and UDF and GST payable such PSF from the airline by the airline operator. Registered passengers who are a ultimate recipient of the airport service may take ITC on the GST paid on PSF and UDF on the basis of the pure agent invoices issued by the airline to them. The airport operator shall pay GST on the PSF and UDF collected from the passenger through the airline at the time of issue of the air ticket, and same is remitted by the airline to the airport operators. Since the airport operations are collected PSF and passenger service and uniform development fees inclusive of GST, there is no question of they are not paying GST collected by them to government. Circular 1115/30/2019 dated October 11, 2019. Rule 33 of CGST rule has been discussed in Chapter 6 Value of Services and Module Study Material. Composition levy section 10 of CGST Act. Statutory provision section 10 composition levy subsection particular. Notwithstanding anything in the contrary contained in the act but the subject provision section 3, 4, section 9 registered person whose aggregate turnover on preceding financial year did not exceed 50 lakhs rupees may opt to pay in lieu of tax payable by him under subsection 1 of section 9. The amount of tax collected are calculated at the rate as per prescribed but not exceeding 1% of turnover in union turnover in union territory in the case of manufacture, 2.5% in turnover in state and turnover union territory. The person engaged in making supplies referred to clause B 6 of 2020, 0.5% turnover in state and union territory in the case of other supplies. The respect of the such conditions restriction as may be prescribed. The provided the government may notify the increase said limit to for 15 lakhs rupees such a higher amount not. The rate of input paid prescribed in the manufacturer 0.5% turnover, and the same has been discussed in the subsequently exceeding 1 crore 50 lakhs as may be recommended by the council. Provided further, the person who opts to pay tax under the clause A, clause B, or clause C under supply services other than refer to clause B, paragraph 6 of this value is not exceeding 10% turnover in the goods and state and union territory the preceding financial year of 5 lakhs rupees, which earlier explanation for purpose of second provision, the value of exempted supply of service provided by the VF extended deposits, loans, and advances is insofar as considered is represented by the way of interest or discount shall not be taken into account for determining the value of turnover in a state and union territory. Registered person shall be eligible to opt for subsection 1 if by provided subsection 1 he is not engaged in supply of service he is eligible. He is not engaged in making any supply of goods or service which is not liable tax under the next non-taxable goods. He is not engaged in making interstate so he will be eligible. He is not engaged in making interstate supply. If he not, he is eligible. Outward supply in goods or services. He is not engaged in making any supply of services through electronic commerce operator who is required to collect the tax at source TCA tax. Tax at source and section 52. He is not a manufacturer of goods as may be notified by the government and the recommendation of council. He is neither a casual tax person nor non-resident person. So the provided that where more than one registered person have been same permanent account number issued under the income tax and IDX, the registered person shall be eligible to opt the scheme unless the registered person opt to pay tax in subsection 1. Turnover limit of composition leave is 50 lakhs to 1.5 crores via notification 11 2019. Notwithstanding anything in the contrary condition of Act, but stand subject to the provision of subsection 3 and 4 section 9, registered person is not liable to opt the paid tax under subsection 1 and subsection 2. While aggregate turnover of the preceding financial year did not exceed 50 lakhs rupees, may opt to pay lieu in the income tax payable by him under subsection 1. Section 9, amount of tax calculated at such a rate as may be prescribed, but not exceed 3% and turnover of the state, union territory, or if he not engage in making supply of goods or service which is not liable in tax, and engage in making interstate supply he is not. So engage in making any supply or service through electronic operation commerce operator who required to collect tax in section 22. Manufacturer of any goods and service or the services may be notified by the government and recommendation council. Taxable person, non-resident taxable person, provided that where more than one registered person have the same permanent account number issued under the income tax act 1961, the registered person shall not be eligible to opt the same. The option available for registered person under subsection 1 of subsection 2e, as the case may be, shall lapse with the effect of the day on which aggregate turnover during the financial year exceed the limit, that is 1.5 crores. Subject 1, subject 2e, in the case may be. A taxable person whom the provision of section 1, as the case may be, section 2e applies, shall not collect any tax on the recipient of supplies made by him or not liable to entitled to credit of input tax. The proper officer has a reason to believe that taxable person has paid tax under subsection 1 and subsection 2e, as the case may be, despite not being eligible. Such person shall, in addition to any tax that may be payable by him under the provision of the tax and liable to penalty and provision of 73 or 74, shall mute as mutatis apply to termination of tax penalty. Explanation 1. For the purpose of computing aggregate turnover of a person for determining the eligibility of pay tax under the section, the expression aggregate turnover shall include the value of supplies made by each such person from first day of April of the financial year up to the date at becoming liable to registration under the Act, but shall not include the value of exempted supply of services provided by way of extended deposits, loans, advance, as so far as consideration, representation by way of interest and discount. Explanation to the for purpose of determining tax payable by a person under section, expressing turnover in the state, a turnover of a union territory shall not include value of following supplies, namely supplies from the first day of April of the financial year up to the date of the person becoming liable for registration under the act. Exempt supplies are provided by extending deposits, loans, and advances is so far as considered as a present by way of interest or discount. Analysis. Overview of the scheme. The composition levy is an alternate method of levying of tax designed for small taxpayers whose turnovers up to the prescribed limit. The objective composition scheme is to bring simplicity and to reduce the compliance cost of the small taxpayers. Initially, the scheme was designed to benefit the small traders, manufacturers, and restaurant service providers. So the scheme was fundamentally for the supplier of goods only in the restaurant service provider, not supplying alcohol, liquor, or human consumption. However, subsequently, supply available composition scheme was permitted to supply other than service, though upon the small specific limit. These schemes contain subsection 1 to section 10 of CGST. However, refer to the composition scheme of goods. Under the schemes, supplies of goods has been opted to pay tax at the composition level of 1% of turnover restaurant service provider, not supplying alcohol, liquors, or human consumption, having an option to pay tax at 5% CGST as turnover. Small taxpayer with aggregated turnover In the preceding financial year, up to 1.5 crores eligible to pay tax on the rate in the current financial year, up to aggregate turnover 1.5%, 1.5 crores. However, a person engaged in exclusively in supply of service other than restaurant service not eligible for the composition scheme stipulated under subsection 1 and 2. Other provided definition benefits of the composition scheme. The person engaging in the supply of services other than the restaurant services whose aggregate turnover is preceding financial year is up to 50 lakhs. The scheme to pay tax at 6% CGST SGG turnover has introduced. Subsequently, the mixed supply who is primarily engaged in supply service other than restaurant service along with the marginal supply of goods shall also liable to benefit of the schemes and provider of the schemes contained subsection 2E of section 10. Essentially, the essential composition scheme under subsection 1 to E therefore refer to the composition scheme of service. The small service providers like saloons, tailors, etc. The scheme is provided to arm such a supplier to pay tax at 6% of turnover of the current financial year up to aggregate turn of 60 lakhs. 50 lakhs. The supplier opted to consumption composition leave need not worry about the classification of goods and services. Both the rate of GST applicable on the goods and services they are required to raise any tax, but simply need to issue bill of supply whether no tax will be charged on the recipient. Easy compliance and no elaborate accounts and records maintained. Simple annual returns and quarterly payment of tax. Any eligible person opting to pay tax under the composition of scheme share instead of paying tax on each invoice of the specified service, pay tax at a prescribed percentage in the turnover every quarter through prescription form. A GST CMB 08. At the end of the quarter, he may pay the tax without availing the benefit of input tax credit. Return to be filed annually by the composition supplier. The provision relating to the composition levy are contained in Section 10 of the GST Act 2017 and Chapter 2 Composition Levy. The central Central Goods and Service Tax Act 2017 said the rules has been incorporated in the discussion of following paragraphs of relevant places. The scheme was initially introduced by the effect of 1st April 2019, notification at 2019, and 7th 2019 is effect of 1/1/2019. Provision of the schemes has been incorporated in subsection 2A and section 10 of the Finance Bill of GS 2019. This is important to note that notification 2019 CT describes 7th 2019 has not yet been rescinded RESCINDED and still operational. Discussion of still Chapter 9 tax invoice for note debit on Module 2 of the As per the above, Section 10 stipulates two types of composition schemes. Composition under Section 10, composition schemes provided under Section 10 Class 1, Class 2, composition scheme under Section 10 Class 2E, 10 1 and 10 2E, where hereinafter referred to as composition scheme for goods, hereinafter referred composition service of services. The provided relating to the schemes has been discussed in General 10 2E, 10 to 1, 10 to 1. A turnover limit or opting composition limit 10 to 1, 10 to 1, 10 to A, 10 to 3. 10 3. The turnover limit for a case of composition legal goods. Section 10(1) provides a limit of 50 lakhs in the preceding financial year which is become eligible for the composition scheme. However, provision to Section 2 encompasses government to increase the said limit of 50 lakhs to 1.5 crores on the recommendation GST Council. View of the said power of government, turnover limit of composition levy of goods has been increased from 50 lakhs to 1.5 crores in the notification via 14 2019, CT dated March 07 2019. However, said notification further stipulates that turnover limit of the composition levy of goods shall be 75 lakhs in respect of Section 8 special category states, namely the special category state is 75 lakhs in Arunachal Pradesh, Mizoram, Uttarakhand, Nagaland, Manipur, Sikkim, Meghalaya, Tripura. On these 8 states, the turnover is 75 lakhs in Tripura, Sikkim, Nagaland, Mizoram, Andhra Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Manipur, Meghalaya. In the case of special category states like Assam, Himachal Pradesh, and Jammu and Kashmir, the turnover limit is 1.5 crores. It is an aggregate turnover supplier in the state UT other than special category states except Assam, Himachal Pradesh, Jammu and Kashmir up to 1.5 crores in preceding financial year. This is aggregate in our supply and the state duty other than the special categories except the Assam, Haryana, Himachal Pradesh supplier of eligible for composition schemes in the good. Further, it is important to note that the aggregate turnover are computed under the India on all India basis is person having the same permanent account number. Refer to the definition aggregate turnover discussed in the subsequent para. Turnover limit of the composition levy for 75 lakhs 1.4 crores other than all state. 75 lakhs Arunachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Manipur, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, Sikkim, Tripura. These states is 75 lakhs. Shoemaker in dealer Prithvi Raj has offices in Maharashtra, Goa. He makes interstate supplies of goods in both states. In order to determine whether Prithvi Raj is eligible to avail benefit of the composition schemes of good, turnover of both officers should be taken into account, and the same as beyond 1.5 crores in the provision of financial. Prithvi Raj can opt for availing composition scheme subject to fulfillment of prescribed condition and goods and both officers current financial year. Further, the option of registered persons availing composition scheme for goods shall lapse with effect from the day on which aggregate turnover during the financial year exceed threshold of 1.5 crores. 75 lakhs in the specific state. Section 10, clause 3. Section 10, the turnover limit in case of composition levy of services. Section 10 2A provided turnover limit of 50 lakhs in the preceding financial year and becoming ineligible for composition levy of services. As stylish Billu Barber is a saloon in Delhi, Haryana, making interstate supplies. In order to determine whether Billu is eligible to avail the benefits of composition scheme service, turnover of both the saloon would take into account and both are exceed 50 lakhs and the preceding financial year. Below can opt for availing the composition levy subject to the fulfillment of specific condition in service of both saloon and current year. Further, the option of registered person to avail composition scheme of service shall lapse with the effect of day in which aggregate turnover during the financial year exceed threshold limit of not exceed. Summarize. Turnover limit of 50 lakhs. Summarize a registered person opting the composition scheme for goods and should be aggregate turnovers 1.5 crores, 75 lakhs in 8 specific categories in a specific 5 and it will be available benefits that scheme in the current financial year with the time of aggregate turnover and current financial year 1.5 crores 75 lakhs. Similarly, registered person opting for composition scheme for services should be aggregate turnover 50 lakhs in the preceding financial year and can be availed for the benefit of said scheme for the current financial year. The time of aggregate turnover of the current year does not exceed 50 lakhs. For the above discussion is apparent from the term aggregate turnover are the most important. So let us understand these terms in details. Intimation for opting of pay tax and the composition scheme must be filed prior to the commencement of financial year in which said exceed Rule 3. Aggregate turnover and composition levy. Section 2, Chapter 6, read with the explanation 1 of Section 10. The definition of aggregate turnover is contained in Section 2, Subclass 6 in the analysis below. Aggregate turnover is a sum of value of all the output supplies falling in the following 4 categories: taxable supply, exempt supply, export of goods and services, both interstate supply, and which exclude the value of inward supplies in which taxes payable by a person on the reverse charge basis, taxes including just paid on GST. This computed all India basis for the person having same PAN account number. For the explanation 1 of Section 10. Aggregate turnover. Explanation 1 of Section 10 classifies the purpose of computing aggregate turnover of a registered person by determining eligibility of each transaction. Aggregate turnover includes the value of supply of service first April to the financial year up to the date of becoming eligible for registration, exclude the value of exempted supply of services provided by way of extended deposits, loans and advances so far as the consider in representing by way of interest or discount. On combination reading to the aforesaid provision, the method of computing aggregate turnover for the purpose of determination of eligibility of a registered person from composition scheme for both goods and service can be depicted as a diagram as follows. While computing a threshold limit of 1.5 crores and specified state funds 75 lakhs and 58 lakhs including is exclusion of aggregate turnover as follows. for services of 50 lakhs, including value of outward supply, supplies, taxable supply, exempted supply, export, seed supplies. For a person having same PAN exempted வர நான் taxable வர same PAN computer and all tax bases exclude CGST, SGST, UTGST, IGST says in value of inward supplies in which turnover is payable under reverse charge mechanism. Value of exempted supply of charge vessels provided by extended deposit loans and advances so far as the exempted services loans and deposits as far as the considered represent we have interest and discount. Value of supplies mean the registered person from first April of financial year up to the date at which became eligible for registration in the CGST Act. The value of export of interstate supplies are relevant only while determining the aggregate turnover of the preceding financial. These values are not relevant for determining the aggregate turnover of the current financial year in which composition suppliers operate for composition levy as they are not permitted to make interstate supplies export of financial year. A rate of tax under the composition levy scheme section 10(1) or section 10(2)(a) read with section 7. Rule 7 prescribes rate which is the taxes payable by the registered person opting for composition levy of goods and composition levy of services. The rate of tax in case of composition levy of goods. A registered person opting for composition levy of goods shall pay tax calculated at the prescribed rates mentioned in the table above during the current financial year in lieu of a tax payable by him under the regular scheme. Serial number, category of registered person, rate of tax. Manufacturers other than manufacturer of notified goods, that is ice cream, notified goods, pan masala, notified goods, tobacco, notified goods, airy waters, and notified goods, fly ash bricks, fly ash aggregator, fly ash blocks, bricks of fossil means assembler, siliconic earth, building bricks and earthen or roofing tiles. Of that, except this thing, half percentage of 0.5 percentage of turnover of a GG state and union territory. Supply made by supplier refer to the clause para 6 of clause B schedule 2 refer to restaurant service 2.5% CGST 2.5% SGST. Any other supply eligible to composition levy under section 10 of CGST, it is 1.5% turnover taxable supplies and goods in the CGST trade union. Student may note that aggregate turnover prescribed in financially relevant to the purpose of determining eligibility for avail composition scheme, but tax has to be paid in accordance with the applicable rates on the turnover taxable person in the case of the category of registered person in the CJUT. Concept of turnover stage and UT under the composition levy has been explained subsequently. Effectively 1% CGST plus SGST, effective rate 5% CGS plus effective rate 1% CG plus SGST. Rate of tax in case of composition levy of services. A registered person opting for composition levy of service shall pay tax 3%. Effective rate is 6% CGST plus SGST. In the case of turnover supply of goods or service in the state and union territory, above season tax under the composition levy has been computed in specific percentage of turnover in the state and turnover in union territory. It is pertained to the understanding that turnover of state and turnover union territory. Turnover of state and turnover of union territory under composition levy section 2 class 112 read with explanation 2 of section 10. As per the section 2.112, the turnover of state and turnover in union territory means aggregate value of taxable supplies, excluding value of inward supplies on which taxes are payable by the person on reverse charge basis. Exempt supplies are made within the state or union territory. A taxable person export goods or services are paid. Interstate supplies of goods or services both made in the state union territory are tax payable by excluding state union tax, union territory tax, integrated tax. Further, the explanation of section turnover of state and union territory. For the explanation 2 to section 10 clarifies that the purpose of determining tax payable by a person under the section, the expression turnover in the state and turnover in union territory shall not include the following purpose: supply from 1st April to financial year date when such person became liable to register under the act. Exempt supply services provided by rent, extending deposits, of extending loans, extending advances so far as considered represent by interest and discounts. On combined reading of the aforesaid provision, method of computation of turnover and the section state and union of paying tax under the compulsion scheme can be depicted in the diagram below. While computing the turnover of state to pay tax under the compulsion levy, inclusion or exclusion of following. Including all taxable supplies and exempted supplies made within the state and UA. While computing turnover of state and union territory of supply other than manufacture, restaurant services eligible for compulsion levy for goods and etc. trade, exempt supply will not be taken into consideration. Exclusion CGST, SGST, UTGST, IGST says the value of inward supplies on the taxes payable under the such mechanisms. The value of supplies from the first day of April to financial up to date which person become liable for registration on that. Value of exempted supply of service provided by the way of extending deposit, extending loan and extending advances insofar as the consideration represented by the way of interest and discount. A photographic campaign has commenced providing photographic service in Delhi from the April of this year. Turnover of various quarters, April to June 20 lakhs, June to September 30 lakhs, October to December 20 lakhs. In the case in Chepak, started the business supply in the current financial year is aggregate turnover of financial year is in the financial year is previously nil. Consequently, in the current year, the eligible for composition scheme service is eligible for the registration when the aggregate turnover crosses 20 lakhs. While registration and GST, we opt to composition scheme for determining the turnover of state payment of tax under the composition scheme of service. Turnover from April to quarter is 20 lakhs is excluded from the value of supplies from the first day of April of the financial year up to the date of persons become eligible for registration under the Act has been excluded from the purpose. On the 30th lakh turnover from April, July to September pay 6%, 3% SGST, 3% SGST of 90,000 CGST and SGST. On the end of July to quarter the aggregate turnover reaches 50 lakhs. Consequently, this option to apply avail composition scheme of service shall lapse from the end of July to September quarter. Therefore, he is required to pay tax at a normal rate of 18%. That tax payable to October to December is 20 lakhs into 18%, 3 lakhs 60,000. While computing the aggregate turnover, determine the Champak eligibility to pay tax on a composition levy and value of supply from the first day of April of the financial year up to the date in which person become liable for the registration of this act. Turnover of April June quarter are included. Who are not eligible for after composition scheme section 10.2, section 10.2 and section 10.2a. Registered person who is not eligible for composition scheme goods. Supply engage in making any supply of goods and service is not liable to tax. They are not eligible. Supplier engage in making any interstate outward supplies of interstate supply no. Person supplying of service through electronic commerce operation is required to collect tax at the source. 2% no. Manufacture of ice cream, pan masala, tobacco, aerated water, fly ash bricks, fly ash aggregator, fly ash blocks, bricks for fossil meat or similar siliceous earth building, bricks, earthening and roofing tiles. The supplier who is either an casual taxable person, non-resident person, no. Supplier is an who's either as casual taxable person which can't be applied for this supplier of registration having providing at section 10.2.1 effort to discussion below. And the registered person who is not eligible for composition scheme, a supplier engaged in making any supply of goods and services which are not liable to tax, he is not eligible for composition scheme of services. So the supplier engaged in making any interstate outward supply, not eligible person applying services through electronic commerce operator, who is required to collect tax and sources and manufacturer of notified goods or suppliers of notified services and supplier who neither casual taxable person or non-resident taxable person. There is no restriction on compulsion supplier to receive interstate supply, inward supply from the goods and service. A person engaged in marginal supply of service other than restaurant services is also eligible for compulsion levy of goods. The sound provision of section 10.1 read with section 10.2a. Fundamentally, compulsion scheme of goods can be availed in the respective goods only one service, namely resident services, whether however, there is a case of manufacturer trader who engage in supply of services other than restaurant services through percentage of such supply of services. Supply service very small compared to supply of goods. Then they may be cases where restaurant service provider also engage in supply of small personal other services. The view of ensuring such a taxpayers to avail the benefit of compulsion scheme of goods. Second provision of section 10.1 permitted marginal sale supply of service other than restaurant service not supplying alcoholic liquor for human consumption for the specified value along with supply of goods and restaurant services as the case may be specified value as we may exceed. Section 10 percentage of turnover CGST or 5 lakhs whichever is higher. This can be interfere that turnover of registered person opting for compulsion scheme for the goods up to 50 lakhs in the preceding financial year. He shall supply services other than restaurant service maximum 5 lakhs in the current financial year. The turnover registered person opting for compulsion scheme is more than 50 lakhs up to 1.5 crores of preceding financial year. He can supply service other than restaurant service in the current financial year maximum 10% of total value of sale in the preceding financial year. Ram Shivahak engage in supply of goods. His turnover is 60 lakhs. Since the aggregate turnover of financial goods does not exceed 1.5, is eligible for compulsion goods. In the current financial year, he has supply of service other than restaurants value does not exceed 10%, 6 lakhs or 5 lakhs, whichever is higher. Then he supply service up to value of 6 lakhs in the current financial year. The value of service exceeding 6 lakhs became ineligible for the composition of scheme of goods and has to opt out of the scheme. $10 lakhs max. Interest income to be excluded from determining the value of turnover in state and union territory under the second provision of section 10.1 explaining second provision of section 10.1. General business tend to save and invest money in the form of deposit loans advances. However, the way of getting engaged in supply of services by extending deposit loans and advances the services other than restaurant service and where the income by such services causes the value of service supplied to exceed the value referred to the second provision of section 10.1. 10% of turnover preceding financial year, state and union territory are 5 lakhs, whichever is higher. Such person, it is, however, pertain to note that the service by way of exceeding deposits, loans, and advances, so far as considered representing the by way of interest and the discount or exempt from GST. Discussion in Chapter 4 exemption of GST in the modules limited other than restaurant service. Discussion prescribed para. Would have eligible to would have become eligible for the compulsion of the scheme for goods and would have opted out for compulsion scheme. This may cause a lot of hardship in the The view of above explanation instead of second provision of section 10 might clarify the purpose of second provision section 10 on the value of supply of exempted supply services by way of extending deposit, loans and advances in so far considering is represented by a interest discount shall not be taken into account for determining value under the state and union territory. Under the second provision of section 10, one resident person opting for compulsion scheme may supply services other than restaurant service for not exceeding 10% of turnover of preceding financial year in the state union territory of 5 lakhs to higher. Thus, while computing the value of services other than restaurant service referred to the second provision, interest, loans, deposit, advance shall not be taken into account. The provision relating to the compulsion levy discussed therefore are applicable to both compulsion levy of goods as well as the compulsion levy of services. Person opting for composition leave can be complied with the following conditions. He shall pay tax under section 9394 reverse charge on interstate goods and service. He is neither casual taxable person nor residential taxable person. He shall mention the words composition tax person not eligible to collect tax or supply at the top of bill of supply issued by him. He shall mention the word composition tax apply on the levy each notice and sign board display in the prominent place of prominent business and every addition place of business. Further, where the goods held in the stock by him is liable to tax under the reverse charge mechanism section 9.4, the tax therefore to be paid under the reverse charge mechanism section 9.4. Addition to the above condition, registered person opting for composition scheme of good must not be engaged in the manufacture of goods are notified in section 10 subclass 2E. During the preceding financial year, the following goods have been notified in the notification 14/2019 CT 7/2019 amendment. The tariff item subheadings, chapters and description. 210000 ice cream other edible ice which is not combined. 21009020 pan masala 24 all goods tobacco manufactured tobacco 22021010 aerated waters. This condition applies in the case of builder promoter opting for composition scheme stock of goods in which required to pay GST and reverse charge mechanism under section 9.4 in the following cases. A builder promoter who purchase at least 80% of input and service used in the supplying of service from registered person. He, in the case shortfall, he is required to pay the tax and the reverse charge mechanism as the inward supply extent short of 80% of inward supply the registered person. The cement is received from an unregistered person. The promoter builder has to pay tax on supplies and cement and reverse charge mechanism. GST on capital goods payable under the promoters and reverse charge mechanism. 6815 fly ash aggregator fly ash block 69010010 brick of fossil means and similar silicon earth 69041010 building bricks 69051010 earthening or roofing tiles as specified in the first schedule of Customs Tariff Act 1975. The intimation option for composition lever Rule 3 and Rule 4. Intimation by a person applying for registration. Any person who is not registered or applies for registration may give an option to pay tax under the composition levy. Form Part B of registered via both GST REG 01. The same shall be considered as intimation to pay tax under composition levy. Such intimation shall be considered only after the grant of registration of applicant. Option to pay tax under the composition levy be effective from the date of which registration is effective. Intimation to registered person. A registered person who wants to pay tax under the composition levy scheme shall electronically file an intimation to prescribed forms of GST common portal at www.gst.gov.in. Intimation shall be filed prior to the commencement of financial year in which the option is exercised. He shall also furnish a statement prescribed form in accordance with the provision of section 44 clause 4 description detail discussed in the detail in chapter 7 input tax credit module 2 of study material within 60 days from the date of commencement of the relevant financial year. Any intimation respect to the place of goods as the state UI shall be deemed to be intimated in respect of all the places and business registration at name of TAN. The option to pay tax under composition levy shall be effective from the beginning of financial year. A person applying for registration can opt for composition at the time of applying registration. This time being any time in the financial year, and a composition levy shall be effective from the date of registration is effective. Registered person can opt for composition scheme from the beginning of financial year. Composition levy shall be effective from the beginning of financial year. Intimation of levy shall intimation of obtaining a pay tax under the composition scheme must be filed prior to the commencement of financial year in which the option is exercised. The person applying for registration at any time during the financial year can apply for registration can opt for a composition scheme. Composition scheme can be effective from the date in which registration is effective. Registration is effective from the date in which person became eligible for registration, where the application of registration has been submitted within the period of the 30 days from each time. When the application registered has been submitted by the applicant after the expiry of 30 days from the date of each becoming liable of registration. The effective date of registration shall be date on grant of registration discussed in the chapter 8 and registration and module 2 of study material. Registered person can opt for compulsion leave from the beginning of financial year. Compulsion leave can be effective on the date of beginning of financial year. Validation of compulsion leave section 10.3 read with rule 6. Withdraw from the compulsion scheme by the taxpayer who ceases to satisfy other prescribed condition. Option excess by registered person can pay amount under the compulsion leave shall remain valid as long as satisfy all the conditions mentioned in the relevant section. For instance, the option to pay tax under the compulsion scheme lapses on the day on which aggregate turnover registered person exceeds 1.5 crores and 75 lakhs in case of specified area, 50 lakhs in case of services during the financial year. Such persons are required to pay tax under the regular scheme under section 9(1) from the day he ceases to satisfy any of the conditions prescribed for compulsion scheme. He shall issue tax invoice from the every taxable person supply made thereafter. Further, it is required to file an intimation for withdrawal from the scheme in prescribed form within 7 days from the occurrence of such event. The effective date on which a withdrawal from the compulsion scheme shall take place shall be the date of intimation of him in this intimation, but such a date shall not be prior to the commencement of financial year in which his intimation has been filed. Circular 7751/2018 GST dated 31 December 2018. Withdrawal from the compulsion scheme by the taxpayer who intended to withdraw from the said scheme. The registered person who is intended to withdraw from the compulsion scheme shall, before the date of withdrawal and file application in prescribed form. The effective date which a withdrawal from the compulsion scheme shall be taken into effect shall be the date of indicating by him in application. Such a date may not be prior to the commencement of this financial year in which such applications withdrawal is being filed. Denial of option to pay tax under the compulsion scheme of tax authorities. A proper officer has a reason to believe that the registered person is not eligible to pay tax under the compulsion scheme has contravened the provision of CGST and provision of the chapter. He may issue a show cause notice SCN to such person. Upon receipt of the show cause notice, the proper officer shall pass an order either accepting the reply or denying the option to pay tax under the compulsion scheme from the date of option from the date of the event concerning such a contravention as the case may be. In the case of denial of the option to pay tax under the compulsion levied by the tax authorities, the effective date as a denial has to be from the date, including the retrospective date as may be determined by the tax authorities. However, such effective date shall not be prior to the date of contravention of provision of GST, SGST rules. Said the above cases, such person may furnish the statement in the prescribed form containing details of stocks and inputs, and input contains semi-finished and finished goods liable to stock or him at the date may be option is withdrawal denial, which is greater period of 30 days from the date of which option is withdrawn or from the date in which order is denying compulsion scheme. Any intimation of application of withdrawing of denial option to pay tax under section 10 in respect of any place of business in the state or union territory shall be deemed to be intimation in respect of all the places of business registered under section 8. The persons availing compulsion scheme during the financial year cost 1.5 crores on 9th of December. He opts to avail shall lapse on the date in which aggregate turnover during the financial year exceed 1.5 crores. That is on 9th of December 2006. A compulsion scheme to be adopted uniformly by all registered persons having the same PAN and provision section 20. All registered persons having the same PAN has to opt for compulsion scheme. If one registered person opt for normal scheme, another became eligible for compulsion scheme. Dealer Kirloskar Son has two offices in Delhi eligible for compulsion scheme of goods. If Kirloskar Sons opt for compulsion scheme of goods, both the offices must pay the taxes on compulsion scheme and abide by all the conditions as may be prescribed in said compulsion scheme. Composition scheme supplier cannot collect tax. Section 10(4). A taxable person opting for composition scheme shall not collect tax from the recipient of supply from him. It implies a composition scheme supply cannot be issued tax invoice. The composition scheme supply cannot enter into the credit regime. Section 10(4). The taxable person opting for the composition scheme shall not be entitled for any credit of input tax. Imposition of penalty in the case of irregular availment of composition scheme. Section 10(5). If a taxable person has paid tax on the composition scheme through was not eligible for scheme, the person would be liable for penalty, and the provision of section 73-74 of the GST Act should be applicable for termination of tax and penalty. Let us recapitulate. Extent of GST, SGST, UTGS, IGST applicability. State in India, intra-state CGST, state IGST, interstate supplies IGST. UTGS, Union Territory without legislation, UTGST and CGST. IGST, Union Territory with the legislature, CGST and SGST. A levy and collection of CGST, SGST, particular CGST levied on intrastate supplies of both goods and services, both IGST, interstate supplies of goods and services, both. Collected and paid by taxable, collected and paid by taxable person. Supply outside the purview of GST, alcoholic liquor for human consumption, levy, value of levy, transaction value under section 15 of CGST Act. Rates notified by the government. Maximum rate of CGST when 20%. IGST is equal to CGST plus SGST. Maximum rate of IGST is 40%. The rates on which tax would be levied with respect of the notified date: petroleum, crude, high-speed diesel, motor spirit, common, petrol, natural gas, aviation, turbine fuel. Tax payable under the supply of goods and services were both notified by the central government. The supply of specific category of goods and services of both an registered person to specified class of registered person. To tax payable the electronic commerce operator, the government may notify specific category of services tax supplied by which shall be paid by electronic commerce operator as when the tax service are supplied therein. Composition levy. Section 10. Composition levy, an option for a specific category of service. Small taxpayers to pay GST on very low rate and base of turnover. Advantages: lower rate taxes, hassle-free, simple procedure for such taxpayers, simple calculation of tax-based turnover, very simple annual turnover. That is advantages. A composition levy provided by section 10(1), 10(2). Refer to the chapter composition levy of goods. Composition levy is provided by section 10(2)(a). Refer to the chapter of composition levy or services. Procedure for opting of scheme. Category of person, how to exercise option, effective date of composition levy. New registration under GST, intimation registration form, effective date is a date of registration. Category of person, registered person opting for composition levy, how to exercise intimation in the prescribed form, effective date at the beginning of the financial year. Turnover limit for composition scheme. Turnover limit preceding financial year can opt for composition limit. The special category states except Assam, Himachal Pradesh, Jammu and Kashmir 70 lakhs. Other state 1.5 crores. The turnover limit is specified in financial year. Opting for composition for services, obtaining turnover composition levy of service of 10 lakhs in the preceding financial year. Rates of tax. Composition scheme for the goods category of registered person rates. Manufacturer 1%, CGST 0.5, SGST 0.5, restaurant services 5%, 2.5%, 2.5%, others 1% of CGST, SGST. Other services, all services provided other except restaurant is 6% turnover. Condition restriction for composition leave. Person opting for composition is neither a taxable person or non-resident taxable person. Shall pay tax under section 994 of inward supply. It does not engage in manufacture or notified service. Also case of composition scheme and supplies. Shall mention the word composition taxable person not eligible to collect tax or supplies at the top of the bill of supply issued by them. Shall mention the word composition taxable person or abroad prominent places at the place of goods. Goods specified by the registered person opting for composition scheme of goods and ice cream, pan masala, tobacco, aerated water, big ash, fly ash aggregator, fly ash block, bricks of fossil meal as necessary, assembly fossil meal, silicon, material, earthen, building bricks and earthening and roofing tiles. These all that comes under the composition scheme. Who are not eligible for opting for composition scheme. Registered person who is not eligible for composition scheme, neither a registered person who is registered or is not registered person who is not eligible for composition scheme of services. A supplier may engage in making of supply of goods and services which is not liable tax. Non-taxable supplies, no. Supply engage in making any supply of goods and services which is not liable tax. Non-taxable supplies services. Supply engage in making any interstate outward supplies of goods and services. Supplier engage in making any interstate outward services of goods and services. The person supplying any supply services through electronic commerce operator who is required to collect tax at source at section 52. The person supply any service through electronic commerce operator who is required to collect tax at section 52. Required. Manufacture of ice cream, pan masala, irritated water, fly ash brick, fly ash aggregator, fly ash block, bricks of fossil meal, similar silicon, siliceous earth, building bricks and earthen roofing tiles, manufacture of notified goods and supply to office notified services. Bricks whose place who is either casual taxpayers or non-resident taxable person not eligible. Supply is either taxable, either casual taxable provider of service, non-taxable person of service. Supplier of services which are shall provided under section 9(1). Any registered person opting for composition scheme for a goods is allowed to supply services other than restaurant services along with the supply of goods and supply of restaurant service value not exceeding 10% of total turnover or 5 lakhs whichever is higher, where the computing turnover and the state and union interest on the loans deposit advances will not take into the account. Other points, bill of supply shall be issued instead of tax invoice. Tax shall not be collected from recipient of supply. Input tax credit shall not be eligible. Composition scheme, if available, shall include all registered persons from same pan. Penalty shall be imposed in case of irregular availment of composition scheme.